Welcome, everyone. Scott, Marcus, and Max. Tim. I'm Max, not Scott. Scott's over there. But we're back with Fantastic Short Story Society with a whole bunch of new stuff. And I'm just going to kick it right over to Scott because he has something to tell me. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, so we're going to do a little bit of a different type of episode as we're watching cats do stunts in the background.
Archie jumping off the back. He's interested.
But this is going to be related to, what are we really doing when we're looking at trailers? And again, we're doing this kind of in conjunction through the ISA because it's all, when it comes down to it, it's about pitching. It's about pitching and conveying your story, your film, your project in the most effective way possible. And then how does that translate ultimately to box office? So I am a little bit of a nerd, and this isn't just because I like to look at numbers, but this first thing is just for fun. Of the movies that we have done trailer reactions for, here are the box office leaders.
Okay.
And I think you can do a little analyzing of what we're into, because there's really no blockbusters on here except for two really dorky movies.
Well, Ghostbusters and Twisters. I mean, those are blockbusters, you know.
They're blockbusters, but they're also like, I'm a ghost nerd. We're both ghost nerds. I'm a weather nerd.
Yeah.
Beyond that, they get more into the independent and the horror world a little bit here.
Imaginary was that scary. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, that was actually either the first or second one we did, which I believe was Blumhouse did that one.
Yeah, and I want everyone to realize that they've hit these numbers because of our show.
Oh, yeah, this would be halved at best without us. But what I really want to get into is the idea of box office legs, which is the longevity of a movie. So much emphasis is placed on having a big opening weekend. And that, of course, that gets the headlines. And that really, studios love that because they get the bigger percentage of the income coming back. But legs are also important. Here, we're looking at the box office legs. That is the multiplier of how many times the opening weekend a movie went. And this is the top 11. And I'll explain these numbers. When I mention, as we have at number one, I Saw the TV Glow is 4.95. Let's just call it 5. That's 5 times its opening weekend. It is what it ended up doing.
Okay.
And on the right column, you'll see a smattering of different things. I love to use a thing called audience score or Cinemascore, which is where you get the traditional grades there. Yeah. But a lot of independent films don't publicize theirs, or they don't even pay to have that service done. And that is people taking a poll essentially as they are walking out of the theater on opening weekend. The people that came out opening weekend, what did they think of it? That's a very powerful indicator to how well is the word of mouth going to be? How well is that going to do? And at the end of the day, it's not so much was the movie good or bad, but did it meet the expectation of the audience? And that feeds directly from the trailer. I saw
72% is what?
So these other numbers, I had to fill in the gaps because I didn't want to just have blanks. And I'm trying to cobble together something. This is inarticulate. But
I love it.
The 72% on I Saw the TV Glow is the audience reaction on Rotten Tomatoes, and the 5.9 is the IMDb score. Huh. Now, I don't like this as much because it's really, we want to get that like first impression walking out the theater on opening weekend, and these numbers can't guarantee that. But at least it's something to put up there to take a look at, and maybe we can extrapolate some information from that. And again, it's difficult because we're not looking apples to apples on these grades, but 72% is a very high score based on what we're looking at, and that is the one with the highest multiplier. I Saw the TV Glow.
But that has been in theaters longer.
Yeah.
Right? Because Twister just came out, a week ago.
Yeah. So of the movies on this list right now, I Saw the TV Glow is still active. Janet Planet's still active, although it's a very small movie. Kinds of Kindness, obviously. So the legs are going to continue to grow, which might make this a fun chart to go back to every so often. Not every episode or anything like that, but maybe once or twice a year. We'll see if is anybody else moving up these ranks.
Yeah, and there are a lot of little things that come into play, like the smaller budgeted movies have a higher likelihood, I would assume, to get a larger multiplier over multiple weeks compared to something that costs $100 million. Well, then again, their budgets aren't necessarily taken into account. It's just box office weekend. So really, budgets to have nothing to do with it. Okay. Yeah,
budgets have nothing to do with it. But I will mention, in case there's other number nerds like me that say, well, these don't exactly add up to what the stats I have in my back pocket. Something like Kinds of Kindness, that opened in only 9 theaters, something like that, and then expanded. I didn't use that as the opening weekend.
Right.
Because that, you just get a crazy number at that point.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I took that opening number and I kind of divided it from half of that, almost like the advanced opening. I put half of that into the opening weekend and then half of that into going beyond that.
Wow, you put some thought into this, Scott.
I'm a nerd. Yeah, no,
you did.
I was excited to do this. A couple of other things I want to point out here. Horror movies. I think in time I'm going to move horror to its own category because horror movies tend to have lower audience scores. It's just tough to satisfy that audience. Horror movies also tend to be
keeps going well. They keep making money.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing is that the horror movie fans are unique people that they are willing to take a chance on a movie that they're not going to like, but they're happy to go out to support the genre, to go along for the ride.
Yeah.
If only other genres had that kind of a fan base.
And fun. I mean, they know what to expect. There's an audience expectation with any horror movie. They're going to get what they like in terms of the gore, or the spooks, or whatever,
Right.
But
yeah, and that's all of it. Its audience expectation is so big. Also, horror tends to be really front loaded, which gives it a tougher chance to have strong legs. So we're actually seeing some good things here with things like Imaginary being number 3 on this list. Even The First Omen is, almost 2.5 times its opening weekend. So there's positivity there. And also Maxine is still an active movie. That's only been out 2 or 3 weeks now. So that number, that legs multiplier is going to be going up as well.
And Ministry of
Ungentlemanly Warfare is the outlier of this whole thing. That is an action comedy that had a cinema score of an A-. It's the highest score on this list, but it didn't have great legs. So why? We don't know. It's a question. It's a discussion. Did they not advertise it enough? Maybe it was made for too small of an audience that loved it and it just didn't have the wide appeal. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think it very much has to do with the genre. I think the genres just don't have as much life to them unless there's major word of mouth promotion. And how many weeks though this has been, as it's been in the theaters, it's probably quite a bit longer than most of the other ones, right? I mean, I suppose.
Yeah, but it's also been out of theaters for a while at this point.
Yeah. Okay.
And so you can compare it to Monkey Man, which is another action film. That's maybe the only other one we have on here, and they have actually pretty close multipliers, and they're pretty close in the grades too.
Much more stylized. There's a darker quality to Monkey Man. It was definitely a different feeling than this Ministry movie.
You're right. Yeah. That was more gritty. The Ministry seemed more polished.
A comedy almost.
Yeah. Action comedy, I would say, with a oddly based on true story kind of event. It was a weird one. But I think Monkey Man definitely had a darker feel. For sure.
Yeah. You're trying to equate this to what a trailer can do to bring audiences into the theater.
Does the trailer mislead the audience to what the actual experience was? Because that's when you get the bad word of mouth. And that's where you get something like Sasquatch Sunset. Sasquatch Sunset was a weird movie anyway. It was going to live in its own ecosystem, its own little bubble, but it could have had good word of mouth. But as you see, the audience, 31%. Yeah. I called it when we did our episode that, this is going to become a weird cult classic that only a few people are going to love it, but they're going to really love it and spread the word. That didn't happen. People were not satisfied.
It doesn't feel like a movie theater kind of movie though either.
That's true.
Like when people go and they expect something big and eventful and an experience. And Sasquatch Sunset, from what I remember from the trailer, it seems very much like I could watch this on Netflix and it'd be a fun little time that I have on my couch with a couple drinks and a buddy over or something,
Right.
It's just one of those weird movies. And if you guys see me suddenly move, it's because Archie is using this on me. All right. Anyway,
I guess we can also take a look at what is working or not working in theaters. I guess we should get some rom-coms on this list too. We should diversify a little bit. We will always have a good, healthy dosage of horror, I'm sure, knowing you and I. But this is something I wanted to throw out there now as it stands. and just kind of see how things evolve as we start adding more movies to this list. And the thing I really want to look at is Twisters. Obviously, this movie just came out, so the multiplier almost is non-existent because opening weekend was just days ago.
Right.
But its A- Cinemascore gives it really, really high potential. And if you're starting out at an $80 million opening, which is what Twisters did.
Go back to the box office if you can. But I'm sorry, I cut you off though.
No, so Twisters, it opened at 82, I think, million opening weekend. As we're recording this through Tuesday, the 23rd, it's up to 103 million. It's obviously going to surpass Ghostbusters probably today as we're recording this. But in time, when we have more data, we'll be able to see like, oh, an A- movie should have this much of a multiplier. So we can see based on the opening weekend, this is what we can project for the entirety of the run. It's going to destroy Ministry.
Yeah. I'm sure though that the studios have systems that are crunching these numbers algorithmically, all these things. I don't know what they use to assume certain projections, but I'm sure that they go through this kind of thing times 2,500.
Absolutely. I had one of my favorite weird LA experiences. We were still in college, Max, and I was working at Revolution Studios, and I was driving around with Todd Garner, who was the VP of Revolution Studios, and we were literally just going to different movie theaters on a Friday, watching the opening of, I think it was a Mission Impossible movie, because that was the first time the Triple X trailer with Vin Diesel was coming out, and we were just watching audience reaction in theaters. And amazingly,
what a fun day.
That was a really fun day, absolutely. But he was getting notifications real time of what that weekend's box office was going to be in the middle of the day on Friday. Yeah. And that was 20 years ago. I'm feeling old, but I mean, that is, this has long been how the business works.
Yeah. And I don't know how they do that. I've never understood it. It's always just been some mystery to me. And that they're thinking these things when they're looking at certain projects. They're immediately thinking when they're just looking at a script, what could this bring in? What can we attach to this? What kind of star or stars could, be interested, because they're talking to the agencies, and the agencies know these certain stars want these kind of projects and they're available. This has all been thought out, so in a way, as writers, we just can't worry about it all. We just can't think about it.
It's true. But so here's the point that I really want to make clear as writers, to have a clear vision of what your project is. Make sure it's in that log line, and make sure that the log line does reflect the script. I'll tell you, I just read a whole bunch of scripts in the last couple of weeks, and I read the log lines after I read the scripts, the screenplays. And sometimes then I got the script more. I thought, ooh, there's something really good in that log line that didn't come across the screenplay. So let's make sure that core messaging, the point of your script, the point of your intentions of your characters really does come through. And then that continues to come through when you get down the road and you're in production and you're putting that movie trailer together, and the all of the marketing, because that's what gets the good cinema score. That's what gets the good word of mouth, because you don't want to sucker people into coming to see your movie and then have it not pay off. And then you get the bad word of mouth. You get the low cinema score, and the movie dies on the vine, basically.
It's happened many times. I've read so many log lines and worked with so many writers in terms of developing their log lines. And the easiest way to think of a log line is, what's the situation? And anytime you think of the word situation, it just has inherent conflict in there. That there's a character that's involved in something that is recurring, that like they're going to live within this ongoing type of moment. Look at this cat. Seriously, you're high-fiving me?
High five.
He agrees. But we need to hit what that situation is. Don't give me questions and then they discover the meaning of life. We need to be specific to the action that we're going to expect to see when we're watching this thing, whether it's a TV series or a movie. And far too often, I see really vague log lines that are almost like a tagline, like something that you'd see on a movie poster or something. And it just, at this point, I've to be honest with all the writers out there as a consultant, I've lost some patience. I've really lost some damn patience. So much free material out there, from YouTube to Googling. I mean, you got to work through this. You got to educate yourself, buddy. You have to educate yourself about not sitting on my lap. So anyway, that's my rant.
And that again is just the core of why we're doing this episode. In addition to, it's just kind of fun to see what the numbers are doing, what the business is doing.
Yeah.
But it comes down to those core elements of having and conveying a clear picture of what the story is.
And having another episode sometime in the future where we try, over maybe at the end of the summer or something, we track by genre. How did each genre do in terms of box office? And I think it would be fun to track that over time. And then you look at the fall and holiday season and see what does well during that time. These are strictly just movies that are in the theater. We don't have the numbers, from all the streamers, obviously. Mm-hmm. But this is fun to look at. It's, even though we're not telling stories right now or presenting stories like we usually do with Fantastic Story Society, this is sort of the business side of how stories are then consumed, and then what's a success and what isn't. But then you have to, as the creator, go backwards and think, well, what could help create something that is sustainable, like you're talking about, like, whatever the opening box office weekend is, $1 million, can that extend? And for me, it's always, what is the situation? Is this something that's going to be fun to live within, and whatever the genre might be, and I can experience something with a character during the middle of that second act? It's everything. It's not just a setup.
Absolutely true. All right. So we will be back with another episode soon where we actually do look at a trailer and react to it.
And I'm looking forward to looking at more trailers. We're still kind of in that, dog days of summer time right now. So there will be more movies that are coming out, plenty of things that we'll be able to watch and review. But we really want to hear what you think. What do you think of these numbers? What do you think of the business? What do you think of your relationship with the business as a writer or director or an actor or whatever? Do you even think about that or worry about that? What trailers do you want us to watch? What movies are you excited about? Even if it's something that's only going to come out on a streamer, let us know, because we'll record some reactions to it, and we'll even say, this person told us to do this, and we'll say thank you, Sally.
Sounds good to me. We look forward to hearing from you.
All right, everybody, have a fantastic time wherever you are, and you'll see us all soon.